to the candidates that we'll be hearing from in a minute. My name is Greg Riedman. I am president of the Charles River Regional Chamber and delighted to bring to you today the three candidates who are on the ballot for the Democratic primary on September 3rd, representing the 13th Middlesex, which is a seat that includes, that has been represented for about 14 years by State Representative Denise Garlick, who has announced that she will not seek re-election this fall. So we'll have a new representative representing this district. Before we get started, first, our thanks to Grassi, who is sponsoring our political debates and our other events that we're having this summer and into the fall. And also want to remind all of you from Needham that we would love to see you 1 week from tonight at Needham Night. It's our one big night dedicated to all things Needham. It's 1 week from tonight at TripAdvisor, Blue Ribbon Barbecue, and really some great company and an opportunity to just be with your neighbors and fellow chamber members, or just folks that live and work in the communities. And we'll be representing we'll be honoring Representative Garlick that evening. So it's a chance to thank her for her service as well. So let's move right on to our debate. This will be a 1 hour event. There'll be no opening statement, but we will allow 90 seconds for a closing statement. We've also will not be using a timer except for that final 90 seconds. We're just going to ask the candidates to try to be as concise in their answers as possible and not to try to monopolize the conversation. And I reserve the right to interrupt folks either in the interest of fairness of time or just to make sure all the questions that we're hoping to get to today, because we do have a lot of things we want to talk about. So I will do my best not to interrupt, but it may happen. And I apologize in advance to the candidates. We've also asked the candidates to think about one question in advance. They don't know about any other questions on the ballot. And that one question, which we'll get to towards the end of the program, is tell us the name of one person currently alive or deceased that you would like to invite to your home for dinner. Tell us what you would serve that person for dinner that reflects a tradition in your family, and what you would like to discuss with that one person. So we'll get to that. I look forward to hearing everybody's answers to that question. But let's dive right in right now. We are talking about filling a seat for a job that pays $70,000 for a starting salary for a state representative in communities where it costs more than $70,000 to live. And so it's a challenge right there in that regards. The House of Representatives is also an institution where rank and file members, especially freshman members, don't have a lot of power necessarily. Oftentimes you're asked to vote on things you don't even get a chance to read. The way that bills come across, they come pretty quickly. And you can be banished from a good committee assignment or a chance to move forward in that if you don't get along with leadership. So with that set up, tell me why you want this job, knowing that there's certainly a few things here that might be working against you. And I'm going to start by welcoming Josh Tarsky, who will be to start the response to that. Thanks. And welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the chamber for hosting this. This is a great event. Like was said, this is going to be a position that could be filled by one of us for a long time. So it's important we make our views known. And so the question of basically how we would make a difference if elected, right? If we get in there, how we would get along with rank and file members. I think my answer to that is that over the span of the last 20 plus years, whether in education or the military, I've had to work with a lot of different folks from different backgrounds, all different beliefs, appearances, but all focused on a mission. And that mission in the military obviously can be a number of things. In education, it's improving, school performance and student outcomes. That's something I've learned to do, to collaborate in teams with often groups that are not always in agreement, to work towards something important. And I think that's something that this role as a state rep would have in common with some of my other pursuits previously. I would try to keep it mission focused, try to understand what the issues are and what the possible solutions are to them, and make informed decisions based on the people that that elect me. Um, and of course, like I think as you get to know me, you're going to find I'm a very nice person who listens and prides themselves on their ability to listen and make change based on that, based on honoring people's voice and also being informed and educated to make good decisions that try to do right by as many people as possible in accordance with the beliefs that I have and that the people I represent have expressed. So I think
Let
some
me
of it
let me just
is,
let me just dig in here a little bit here.
yeah,
So you've been Army service. You're a Green Beret, if I'm not mistaken, right? You are been a teacher. You're an attorney. You've been a principal or a headmaster at a school, right? So why would you want to do this as your next thing? Why be a state representative?
I think it's important, especially with the political discourse, the way it's going in this country, to have good people who have been in leadership positions and have been in the weeds on some of the things like education in the conversations. You need informed people helping guide these discussions. There is not a ton of educators in the state legislature. And I think honestly, being in the weeds as both a teacher and now as, a principal, I think I can help with some of the things that we need expressed and some of the practical considerations being brought to the forefront if we really want to change schools in the ways we need.
Okay, let's come back to that. So Patrick Gatto, welcome. Great to see you. Josh has a variety of experiences as a teacher and as an attorney and veteran service. Help us understand a little bit about you, but also why would you want to do this job? What is it about your kind of experience, your desire to do this job? Given that Beacon Hill is not an easy place for someone to start out.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks to the chamber and thanks, Greg, for the question. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I've thought long and hard about what it means to be a public policy professional. I've worked on issues at the local level here at home in DC with Catherine Clark as her legislative staff, and throughout the country on various other political issues, including reproductive freedom. There's a lot of good work that's been done, but there's a lot that still needs to be done, right? I've seen firsthand people and elected officials who are in it for the right reasons and those who aren't. And we need people who have the experience, who can step forward and answer the call and be able to push, the agendas forward that is going to be the betterment for, all the constituents here at home and, for the larger Commonwealth and even beyond that. I grew up in a New Testament household. My father was organizing tenant rights in Baltimore when I was born. And I bring those types of values to everything that I do, right? So I'll always be one who is on the side of the people, who is on the side of doing the right thing. And I have a expertise and background and track record of success for democratic values at all levels.
Right. So, but why Beacon Hill? Why would you want to do this job? You have a business now. Help us understand why you would want to go from that business to this job. And
I think now more than ever, we need good people stepping forward, right? I mean, look at the polarization that happens around the country or here at home, or the issues that we're trying to push forth, right? Whether that be housing or money or politics or anything like that. These are things that I'm passionate about. And it's like part of my DNA that I really want and feel like we can push forward. My expertise as a coalition builder allows me a unique perspective into how to accomplish legislative feats because I've done it and worked on it throughout the country. So I want to do it to get, all the good democratic agendas passed, right? I mean, housing is a big one. Climate, I'm for first and foremost always a climate guy, right? There's a lot of good work that we can do. So the reason that I'm in it is because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm uniquely qualified with the experience and the passion and the success and track record to deliver that.
right. Okay, we'll come back to you. Ken Ruetenik, welcome. Good to see you. Now, you're 24 years old, correct?
Yes, I am.
I don't know if there's any legislators currently on Beacon Hill who are younger than you or 24. I don't know if you know.
No, I don't
Um,
believe not younger than me, that's for sure.
So help us understand why you would like this job. We'll talk a little about why you think you might be good for it. But given that Beacon Hill is not a place where young folks tend to aspire to be, it would be, I think,
Yeah,
especially where we understand why you want to do this.
sure. So, I mean, my parents moved to this community to Needham in 2002. I was built by this community. I want to give back to it. Um, and I think that I would do a good job representing us, District 13, Norfolk at Beacon Hill. I'm young. I'm down for a challenge. I'm down to learn, and I'm excited by this. And another large part about why I sort of came out and putting myself into this arena is because I want young people to sort of be swept up in it too. We should start normalizing, young people getting involved at an early age. Um, and so I just want to do my part to do the best that I can to sort of not only support the agendas that I believe should be passed, but also obviously be a voice for all the constituents throughout District 13 Norfolk.
And what about the environment of working on Beacon Hill, where generally, and even someone with a lot of political experience tend to not have a lot of authority early on in their job. But have you thought about that?
Yes, I have. And I'd be okay with that, to be totally honest with you. Um, it's obvious that with Representative Garlick's tenure, there's a lot of political clout that comes with serving for 14 years. And that's something that, regardless of whoever ends up in the seat, whether it be one of the three of us or Bill come November, we're all going to have that same struggle, I believe. And, I'm up for the task. And I hope that people consider me come September.
Okay. I want to drill down a little more to everybody's desire and interest in doing this, and I'll go to you first, Patrick. So I know you've had a lot of experience working for a lot of Democratic candidates. Your website lists campaign after campaign that you've been a volunteer for in one capacity or another. Can voters in this district think that you will be independent from them, or will you be independent from all the sort of the Democratic common thinking, or can we really think you're going to be in lockstep every part of the way on this? How independent might Patrick Gatto be as a state representative?
Yeah, good question. So I have a master's degree in conflict resolution. I used it in my professional life, down in Washington, and I use it every day. And it's very, filled with understanding of interpersonal dynamics. So the idea that, I'm going to be in lockstep with a lot of the democratic values. I mean, I think I am anyway, right? But where there is diversion, my approach to that is finding common ground, right? And I think there's a lot of work for that, not only among the party, but outside of the party, right? When you approach a situation where, you may disagree with someone and you say, I think there's a lot more that unites us than divides us, that sets a tone for getting, more out of the pie, if you will, than if you're at odds, right? So I don't really like that dichotomy of this or that, right? In Beacon Hill, there's going to be a lot of brinksmanships, horse trading. I mean, it's no secret, that it's a very top-down institution, right? So one of my short-term goals up there is creating as many relationships as possible. I know people in leadership already just from my work around the Commonwealth, right? So that's going to serve the district well. So I think I'll have a leg up on some of the other candidates in being able to enact some things off the bat. Additionally, relationships are how a lot of things get done, right? I'm a small business owner. We opened this family business in Needham in 1948. It's been here 75 years. Relationships are super important, and they're super important up on Beacon Hill. So creating those and being able to have the rapport is one of my short-term goals as first-term rep, to create those relationships so when we have the need, we can go to the door of leadership, knock on it and say, hey, we're trying to work on this. What can we do? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Josh, I want to follow up with you too now. So help us understand how you might operate as a freshman rep in the halls of Beacon Hill, where if you go against the grain, you could get punished and never be anything more than a low-level non-active member.
So, I'm going to fall back on my experience here, right? I've done a lot of campaigns and a lot
I'm
of
sorry, Patrick, that was for Josh.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, I thought I messed it up.
No.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, so say that again, I'm sorry.
So help us understand how you would operate within the halls of Beacon Hill, knowing that if you're not in lockstep with leadership, you don't necessarily get a lot of leeway in terms of your promotion, your ability to even be successful.
So I guess the first thing is that I believe in causes. Like I don't know if I'm going to be in lockstep with people who are trying to do things that I don't believe in. And I'm willing to stand up for the things that I believe in, even if that puts me at odds with certain folks. I think that is the very definition of leadership, understanding, why you stand where you stand and being able to, necessarily fight from that position. That is what this job would entail. I don't think that would lock me out of leadership. I think that would probably promote me within it. That's my experience with leadership. And I've been in a lot of difficult situations where I've seen that firsthand. That's how things get done. People who are passionate and well-informed, speaking their minds, actually persuading and influencing the discussion as a whole. And I would expect if I get in there, I would be able to do that even in the legislature.
Great. Let's dig into some issues. Let's start with housing, which I know all of you have expressed concern with. And I'm going to start with you, Ken Ruetenik, first. Let's start with the MBTA Communities Act plan, which is not before the legislature, but will now be before town meeting this fall. The town is looking to propose two different options. The base compliance basically just hits and builds the minimum number or allows for the building of the minimum number of housing units required by the state law. The Needham housing plan goes further and would actually allow for more housing there. Ken, which plan do you support, the base compliance or the Needham housing plan?
I'm 100% for the Needham housing plan.
Okay, help us understand why.
I have as a young person, it's nearly impossible for people to stick around in Needham after graduating high school. A lot of my peers have moved away, and after college and graduating from college, there's no starter homes in Needham, and obviously that's sort of adjacent to this MBTA act. But the reality is, as I see it, and for those who went to the public hearing, just because it's going to allow for roughly sub 4,000, more than 3,200 units, I believe, doesn't mean it's all going to come in, and it doesn't mean it's all going to come in at once. We have to consider that it's going to be time for properties to hit the market. And not only that, we also have to sort of trust, the invisible hand in the sense of builders are only going to buy and develop properties where they see profit in the future. So to those who are afraid of, this increase in traffic, which we saw the consultants say wouldn't be the case, or this strain on NPS, which also was debunked, it won't happen overnight, and it also won't fill all those units discussed to begin with. Now, on the
I'm
other
going to stop you right there, and we're going to come back to housing in a second. But Josh, why don't you go next? Tell us which of the two plans before town meeting do you support?
I also support the Needham housing plan. I think it's the central issue in this entire election revolves around housing and increasing the supply. And I feel like the Needham housing plan does that more effectively.
Great. Okay, Patrick, same question.
Sure. So I'm, intimately familiar with the plans. I attended all the home meetings via Zoom. And that was before Denise announced that she was resigning and the seat opened up. I approached this a little bit differently than Josh and Ken. one of the things about being a legislature and understanding relationships is knowing, when you're stepping on toes and when you're staying in your lane. And I can certainly say that I would have passed the MBTA Communities Act out of the legislature. At this point, it is a local issue, and I'm happy to help and support the select board in whatever the capacity they need, or the other boards. But ultimately, I don't want to put my thumb on the scales too heavy, because there's people who know a lot more about it, who have worked on it or are working on it now, or doing, all sorts of webinars or meetings around town. So, and that's, sort of that experience again that I bring of understanding how to create the relationships and be able to build a system where we can deliver for folks.
So you're saying you would not endorse either one of the plans?
I'm saying I would support both plans.
Well, obviously the first plan gets voted on, then the second one, but would you vote in support of it? Would you tell your fellow town meeting members to support the larger plan, the Needham housing plan?
I don't think it would be appropriate for me to weigh in if I was, as a state rep. And I think there's a long history, if you're, familiar with politics and elected officials and, these circles where people, don't want to put their thumb on the scales and, change it, because I'm, as an elected official, I'm going to know more about what's going on at the State House, right? And I'm not going to know as much of what's going on down here. In this particular case, I know a lot, right? Because I was following it all along. But I still want to be mindful of the relationships. And I want to make sure that I put myself in a position.
Tim, thank you. Josh, do you agree with that approach, that you should be neutral on this if you were?
I don't, with all due respect. I think that you collect all the information up, and you got to pick a side, right? People are going to look to us for leadership and guidance, and I think the two plans have different approaches, and I think that we need to increase our stock of housing, and I think that the Needham housing plan does a more effective job of that. And also just real quick, also, like, I also want to just say, like, with relationships, being the principal of the school, I deal with so many people, right? Families, students, I'm a 6 through 12 principal. I'm dealing with, I send out a weekly email that's addressed to thousands of people. And if people aren't happy with the job I'm doing, they certainly will make it known. My job currently is contingent upon building relationships, soliciting input, and really trying to form alliances between groups that are often in disagreement. So with relationships, I just want to make it known that I also have a lot of experience with that. It is, I would say, probably one of the main tasks of being a successful principal. And I do think I could bring that expertise into the State House. That's a skill I've learned in other paths, but I feel like it does link to the current job I'm applying for as a state rep.
And Ken, how do you feel about the idea that Patrick doesn't think it's his role to endorse a plan, a town meeting?
I think that being a resident of Needham should qualify you to have an opinion on it at the very least.
Okay, Patrick, do you want to respond to any of that before we move on?
Yeah, just as a response, I'm certainly very supportive of the Affordable Homes Act that's being considered by the legislature, right? The billions of dollars investment for public housing, for the Affordable Housing Trust, for the House Stabilization Fund, and so on and so forth. That's supposed to create, 40 to 60,000 units in the Commonwealth over a relatively shorter period of time. So those are the kinds of things that I pay attention to now and looking at and understanding. And I think the governor is doing a good job pushing that. And I hope that the legislature does pass the Affordable Housing Act.
So I'll throw this next question out to anybody who wants to answer. Does anybody have an idea to increase our housing stock that isn't something we've heard of before, a new idea that would help create more housing? Anybody want to answer that one?
I think the only thing I'm considering is, and I agree with Patrick. I think the Affordable Homes Act is a very strong bill, sweeping and bold, and I think it's going to help a lot with this, as well as the MBTA Communities Act, and of course the 40B. Even though Needham's in compliance, I think it's helped increase some of the housing stock. But I think what I'm concerned with, and this is something once again, as an educator, I've run into. I had a teacher resign last week. Right? She said that, look, I love this school. love working here, got a good relationship with administration and my peers. And I asked her, I said, well, then why are you leaving? She said she just simply couldn't afford it. Right. And I think that that's troubling that I'm having trouble keeping talent because of this affordable housing crisis. Um, and I would suggest that a tax credit towards certain members in our community would benefit these communities. So I think that the people, police, fire, teachers, nurses, the public servants who are trusted to put out our fires, protect our property, teach our children, if they can't afford to live with us, I think that's unacceptable. These are people who have an integral role in the community and they should be allowed to live in it.
Okay, so a tax credit for municipal employees is one idea. Ken, do you have any?
Yeah.
I don't have any new ideas, no. I think throughout this process, what I've been seeing a lot of is after looking at sort of the rate of production at Beacon Hill, what I've sort of come to see is, I think we need to take what's already been sort of bouncing around Beacon Hill and continue to either improve upon that or make sure that things get passed at the end of the day from there. So no, I don't have any ideas.
And Patrick, anything that in terms of increasing housing stock that hasn't been out there and isn't part of the housing plan now, or
Yeah, affordable housing is something I've worked on a lot. We had a Needham Opportunities Inc. here in a long time that was responsible for throwing up the duplexes and limber chambers, and we have a long history of doing a lot of affordable work. Two of the things that I haven't really fleshed these out as policy issues per se, but two ideas that I have is maybe private sector help, like a nonprofit that could subsidize certain groups of people with a down payment or something like that through grants or perhaps through state funding, and some sort of rubric in order to award those grants. So, housing would be opened up to more affordable options to people.
so here's
that are in need.
I'll run this by the three of you that some believe that increasing the 40B law from a 10% to a 15% would increase housing all across the state substantially and fairly quickly. Would anyone support that, increasing the 40B law threshold from 10% to 15%? Just raise your hand. Let me know if you do.
I'd have to dig in a little bit more on the repercussions of that and also the effects to the district before I could weigh in, but I could certainly get back to you with a position on that, Craig.
Ken or Josh, you have a thought about that?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot in motion from the state currently with the Affordable Homes Act and the MBTA Communities Act. I'd be curious to see the effects of those before increasing the 40B percentage. I think we should have a little bit of patience, and that's stuff I've heard from people in the district when I'm at their houses. Let's see the effects of some of these things. These are big sweeping bills that could address the issue substantially, and I'd be curious to give it a chance and see what the actual effects are.
So I guess I would say that folks like Ken, if not Ken, but people his age can't afford to wait for a lot of things to take traction and for things we've built over a long time. It feels like there's some urgency here to really getting building and stuff. I don't know, Ken, do you think either do you have thoughts about increasing 40B or other ways to make sure that people like you, your peers, can continue to stay in Massachusetts?
Yes, I would say I'm definitely in support of anything that will help peers talent stay in Massachusetts. However, with the specifics of raising from 10% to 15%, I would have to look into the ramifications of that, which it sounds like Pat and Josh also echo. However, I will say I'm very strong in the position where I know that we need more housing here. A lot of my peers will finish up at school in Massachusetts and then move to Florida and then move to Houston or then move to Georgia. And if we're being told by the public and other residents in Massachusetts that they want us to stay around here, it's hard for us to believe what they have to say when it feels like, just from an affordability standpoint, they don't want us here. It's feels that they've made it clear to us that after we spend our time in Alston paying rent to go to school downtown, that, we're out of here to look for a better future.
I guess I'd also just remind everybody, Marcus Nelson, select board member, didn't seek re-election because he said he wasn't sure he could actually live here. And so the urgency is a big deal. But let's move on. I want to talk about business. Needham has been pretty successful over the number of years, attracting some significant employers here. TripAdvisor and NBC 10 both received tax incentives from both the state and from the town. We have Shark Ninja, Big Belly, but we haven't had a big company move to Needham in some time. What could you do if you were in your job at Beacon Hill to help Needham attract those larger significant employers in whatever sector might be attractive? And I think we'll start, I forget where I'm going to start with you, Josh. I think we're rotating around here.
I think there's several things you can do. I think tax incentives to large corporations is a very good idea to help them attract some of that to our town. I think the affordable housing or housing stock will also help ease some of the burdens that I hear from small business owners and probably some of these larger corporations we hope to attract. I've heard stories of local businesses being less competitive because some of their staff can't afford to live in town, so they have to commute in for similar paying jobs. So if you increase housing and make it more affordable, then ideally the talent is in the town and stays in the town to work. So I think the housing is tied to this. And of course, as an educator, I think getting local tie-in from the high school and some of our education sector to train talent in what the local businesses are saying they need. I do this at my school. I think workforce development and having a pipeline to some of these careers is something that employers are they like. And if we could form those partnerships between the school system and local businesses, I think that would be a win-win both for the students and for the businesses that are debating on which town to pick to open up shop.
Okay. So tax credits, housing, and workforce training. Patrick, anything you could add to that list?
No, I mean, that's a good list and certainly agree with those ideas. Each town in the district is different too, right? What may work in Needham may not work in Dover or Medfield for that matter. So we want to be looking at it at the local level and talking to the local boards and the local electives and finding out what exactly it is that they want and then formulating a plan to go out and do that, right? Oftentimes, the campaigns and advocacy campaigns that I would run for legislation or otherwise, you do a lot of work in advance of ever announcing, right? You do a big survey, you make a plan, you get partners, you do all these things, you build this coalition way before you even launch anything. At that point, you have a very good chance of success. And that's how I would approach this situation as well.
So you think the need is to have a campaign to attract companies here? I'm not sure I followed where you were going there.
Well, I think it would depend on what it is, right? I mean, I kind of look at everything a little bit as not everything, but a lot of things as a campaign, right? So if you're trying to pass legislation or you're trying to pass a tax credit or you want to do whatever the case may be, or you want to do workforce training, there's going to be a cost or there's going to be a bill or there's going to be the need to create some advocacy for it.
Yeah, so just pardon me for I just want to focus on that question. So I'm not talking specifically about how to elevate bringing companies to Massachusetts in general. I'm talking about really what could you do as a state rep to bring companies to Needham, where I guess Medfield or Dover, but really I'm thinking about Needham here.
Mm-hmm. I think we have, the industrial park, which is good. It's good at attracting talent. I would, just echo the things that Josh said. I don't have any specific ads at this moment, but I think those are good ones.
Ken, thoughts about how you get companies to come here and decide that Needham is a good place for them to set up shop?
I think I definitely agree with Josh on the sort of 3 points that he made. But at the end of the day, it seems like to me what I see a lot in the local Facebooks is we want, Harvey's back. We want to be able to go into town and buy clothes. We want to go and get some like sports goods, like when we used to have motels in town, I believe. And, to me, what that ties into is MBTA Commuters Act with, multi-purpose residential commercial spaces. And, that's something that I would like to see in Needham because, that'll not only attract the talent, but that will also attract the business as well.
Okay, so you started moving towards that idea of small businesses, which is the next thing I wanted to ask about anyway.
Yes.
And we're really talking about, what do we do to help downtown Needham, help the Heights, attract and keep and retain those small businesses? Now, I looked at all your websites. None of you actually mentioned as a platform anything specific to small business, except Patrick, you say on your website that small business is one of the things you care about, and then you click on the link and it says more to come. So help us understand what the more to come is. How would you help small businesses in Needham?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to help small businesses. I think, at the front of my mind is zoning, right? There are parking requirements that we could do if you're talking specific to to the downtown that helps developer create buildings and units and storefronts, which are currently financially not feasible due to some of the zoning requirements. And there's been a move in town to, lessen some of that down. And you see some of that in the Hone Act, and what they're talking about is what is needed. So that would be, first and foremost would be, make more friendly zoning for developers and businesses.
Okay, so whatever, zoning is a local issue. If you're a state rep, how are you going to help downtown Needham?
I mean, as a state rep, you have purse strings, right? So if you could offer tax credits or incentives, or I mean, small businesses are the lifeblood of the economy, right? So we definitely want to keep and retain them. It's not all about, when you're a rep, it's not all about what you're passing at the state level, right? It's also what you're doing locally. There's different lanes as a state rep. There's the legislative side, there's the constituent service side, and there's the active part of going out and helping people get the things that they need. So as a small business owner myself here in Needham for 75 years, I understand the challenges of small businesses, and I understand, what it takes in order to be successful. And I would be on the side of small business and be an ally with them and helping them get, special zoning treatment or whatever the case may be.
Okay, Ken, what would you do to help small businesses in Needham, the ones you mentioned a few minutes ago?
Sure. I have a sort of similar relationship with small business. My father owns a physical therapy clinic in Needham, which opened in 2012. And, I've seen firsthand what it means to be a part of the community from a small business perspective. And, definitely agree with Pat when it comes to being a state rep and serving as a state rep. There are different lanes, and there's a difference between what we would be able to accomplish and be able to offer to small businesses specifically as a serving state rep, as well as what we can do sort of on the ground to help out from a local standpoint. And I definitely agree with his comments on zoning, and I agree with his comments on the tax incentives and tax credits. And this also, I mean, obviously my point previously segued into this can also be built upon from the sort of residential mixed use zoning.
Okay, Josh, same question. How would you help downtown Needham or other small mom and pop businesses in the district?
Sure. I think the first thing I would do is try to form a group, I think, of local business owners, and really solicit their information in a more focused way. I think they are going to have a much better sense of what the needs are and help inform me the direction we should go. So I think that would probably be my first step. That group and meeting and discussing some of these issues from the experts on the ground, I think would be invaluable to informing, me and how I could best represent them. So, I've heard some of their needs, the staffing issues and the commuting, but I think that's one piece of probably a larger framework we need to hash out.
Okay, let me ask you all about a couple questions that are going to be before voters in November, in addition to you, which includes some ballot questions.
Hey,
And
Greg, I just wanted, Greg, do you mind if I just jump in one quick? I just wanted to
Sure.
add one
Yep.
quick thing. Thank you. And that's that I currently sit on Senator Roush's Small Business Advisory Council, which looks at these issues often. It was founded during COVID, and we used to meet a lot more, and now we meet quarterly, and we're always looking at legislation and other ways to help.
What sort of ideas have come out of that committee that have moved forward?
A lot of the stuff was around COVID, and making sure that businesses could still stay open and, working with the Department of Public Health to make sure that there were ways to do pickup and delivery and, make sure that the money was still flowing. And we're still active, and we talk about, local legislation that comes up. And,
Okay. So let me ask you about a couple of the ballot questions there, because the first one really does apply to small businesses. There's likely to be a ballot question about the tipped wage. Waiters and bartenders earn a lower minimum wage and then make up the difference in tips, presumably, or they do. The ballot question would ultimately raise that level so that everybody is getting the minimum wage. I would love to know if you would support that question or whether you oppose it. And Patrick, I'll start with you on this one.
yeah, I support that question.
You support raising it, Ken? How about your thoughts on that?
I've gone back and forth a lot about this one. And that's mainly because, at the beginning, I really wanted to see minimum wage for everyone. And then I had a lot of conversations with my peers who spent their college career, putting themselves through school working as waiters at TGI Fridays. And, I talked to them and they said, they gave me the reality, which is they genuinely think that if tipping wage was to be gone with and they were moved to minimum wage, they genuinely thought that they wouldn't be able to pay for college. And, I'm going to listen to my peers on this one and say,
I'm cutting everybody off a little bit because we're running a little low on time. And I still have two questions. Josh, same question to you about the tipped wage ballot question.
Yeah, I would support the bill as well.
Okay, and then the next one is MCAS ballot question, and I'll start with you, Josh, as someone in the education sector. This would eliminate a standardized testing of any sort as a graduation requirement in Massachusetts. Help us understand this from a teacher's perspective. We know generally teachers' unions have been pushing to eliminate this.
Yes, and I think I agree with the current Secretary of Education and Governor Healy, who are opposed to eliminating MCAS as a graduation requirement. I think that it gives us a lot of different things. There are problems with the MCAS, namely, it is remarkably challenging with how much time it takes up and how much resources it takes to actually implement. I mean, I'm in a 6 through 12. I'm doing a lot of these tests, and it takes up a lot of time. So I think we can find a better test and a better model, but I wouldn't be willing to give up MCAS until that's in place and it's more hashed out.
Right. The ballot question actually eliminates that as a graduation requirement, no matter what the test is. Right.
I would keep that. I think it's important, and I do agree with Governor Healy and the Secretary of Education. I think it's, I'm not saying that the reason Massachusetts is near the top or number one in the country and a world contender for its education system, but it is a piece in our success. And I think to change that, I think that would be a mistake without having a replacement that's hashed out, ready.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. You're the guy who most recently took the MCAS test among us here. What do you think?
I would eliminate it as a graduation requirement.
You would eliminate it?
Yes.
And why would you do that quickly?
My experience is that you spend a lot of time as a student learning how to score well on the MCAS, and I don't think that's a particularly good use of time from whatever age I started taking it throughout until 10th grade.
Okay, Patrick, your thoughts?
Yes, thanks for the question. I'm with Ken on this one. I'm supportive of the ballot question. The MCATs are good. They are a good rubric, but you have to listen to teachers, right? Teachers are basically heroes when you think about it. So they're saying it's bad, we got to get rid of it. One of the things that I talked to the teachers union about was why aren't they putting the new system in place first? Because they talk about wanting to put that in place.
And the reason is it's in legislation, you can't have a combined question where you have two things. It doesn't get past the test that you need to make the ballot. So they need to be done separately. And I think we just need to keep with the teachers union and make sure that they understand that we do need a rubric, right? We need to be able to measure. We don't want to be a state that doesn't have that measurement. So, you know,
But this question does eliminate it. It doesn't substitute it. It eliminates it, right? And a lot of employers are concerned they will have no way of knowing whether someone from the school system, any school system, has met any kind of standards and what the quality of what that kid has learned.
right. So, you know, as I said, I support the teachers. I think, you know, they are on the front lines. I talked to a lot of them on the doors and, you know, they're supportive. My mother was a teacher for, you know, 40 years, Head Start, GED, you know, public school, private school, the whole nine yards, right? So I understand, you know, what teachers are going through, and I think we have to listen to them, right? They're amazing. I have a 5-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. They do amazing work, and they, you know.
Okay, but we've got a teacher here. Josh, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I deal with teachers all the time. I think the biggest complaint isn't necessarily the accountability or standard. It's that I hear a bunch of different things. I think one of the main issues is how much time it takes. There's too many days dedicated to the test itself. I think if you were to ask teachers, a lot of them would say that an accountability and a standard is valuable, and does provide a lot of benefits to our education system. I think it needs to be tweaked. And I think throwing in a graduation requirement too early, it's a little risky, and I don't think it's worth the risk. Let's get our ducks in a row and then do this ballot initiative. I think
There's one more ballot question I want to ask everybody about, and maybe you can just give me a quick answer. The legislative transparency would allow the state auditor to audit the legislature. Anybody in support of that ballot question? And then all your future colleagues will be mad at you, but go ahead. Ken, you want to start there?
I will gladly start. I'd say yes. We need more sunlight in state government.
Okay, Josh, yes or no?
I mean, ideally, legislators are transparent people, period, right? That's kind of like why they're elected, even though I don't think traditionally that's what most people believe. So I don't think we need a separate auditor. I think we need to elect people who have integrity. And
Okay,
if they do that,
Patrick.
Yeah, so you know, I've seen the auditor. I've been elected to the Massachusetts State Convention a bunch of times where the auditor routinely speaks and now has started singing about this issue, which is, you guys should YouTube it if you haven't seen it. It's pretty amazing. I support auditing them. You know, when I worked in DC for Catherine Clark on her legislative staff, we had more transparency down there. So I'm certainly support the auditor and efforts.
Patrick, next question for you. Should Joe Biden step aside?
I believe, you know, the presidential campaign is big business, right? There's billions of dollars at play. He's not up there by himself making these decisions. There's a war room, there's a team, there's consultants.
I just want to know what you think. Do you think he should or
Focus
no?
groups. So I'm with Joe, and you know, all the way unless Joe and the team decide that they want something else. Any detraction takes votes away from him, and we can't afford that.
Okay, Josh.
I agree. I think this is a decision for Joe Biden and his closest folks.
Okay,
I will support Joe, and if he decides to step down, the Democrat on that ticket, I will support them as well.
Very good. Ken?
I'm with Joe because in November we are voting against Project 2025.
Okay, so you all don't think he should step aside. Is that correct? Okay. I would love to ask you now one more question. Help us understand what Denise Garlick's legacy is and how you might fit into being her successor. And I will start with you, Ken. I'm going to ask you to just try to keep it to a minute or less, though.
Sure. I'm very lucky to have Representative Garlick come to Mitchell School when I was younger, speak at the cancer event at Newman on multiple occasions. You know, the legacy that she leaves is someone who is a great listener, someone who can help corroborate and help people work together regardless of their differences. And whoever takes the seat in November has a big shoes to fill with being able to bring the community together and continue to voice our needs on Beacon Hill.
Great, thank you. Patrick, you can go next.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Denise has been an amazing rep. You know, she's a family friend. We helped her run for the planning board and, the health Department of Health and the Select Board, and she's a great resource to the campaign, and we're certainly will miss her up there. She's done a legacy that is amazing with constituent services on education, on special ed. She's a full-time rep, right? A lot of people don't do the full-time rep job up there like Denise does. And I would
So, but
honor
let
that
me actually,
legacy
John, I
and
just
try
want to
to
clarify
expand upon
something.
it.
You said she's been a resource to the campaign. She's not endorsed your campaign, or she's working for your campaign?
No, she's not.
Okay, I don't want to mislead anyone. Okay. And Josh Tarsky.
So when I knock the doors, I get two questions. When I tell them why I'm running, or tell them that I am running, they ask first why, and I try to explain, and then two, a lot of folks know Denise Garlick and say what Ken said. She is going to be big shoes to fill. Denise has been, very generous, I think, to all the candidates, and I think she's left a legacy that is going to be hard to follow. But that being said, one of us is going to step up. And if I was that person, I think, especially with some of the things that she chairs, especially the education stuff, I think I would come in very informed. And I know that's more of a senior level committee, but I think I could provide value there and across all sorts of platforms and committees across the State House. Really, I want government to run well. I want to play a part in that. I wouldn't be on this path if I didn't want that. And I feel like when I talk to Denise, she also has that type of sincere conviction to just making a difference.
Okay,
And
I'm gonna have to stop you right there. So our last question before closing statements, which is the one I told you would be coming. Tell me the name of one person currently alive or deceased that you would like to invite for dinner to your home. Tell us what you would serve that one person that reflects a tradition in your family and what you would want to discuss. And Patrick, you can go first this one.
Sure, this was an easy one for me. My person I would choose is Jesus. I go to church on Sunday, baptized here in town at Christ Church, right across from the library. So, as far as what we would serve for dinner, my mom grew up in lower middle class coal country in Pennsylvania. She taught me how to whip up an amazing dinners from odds and ends around the kitchen. So we serve a a delicious homemade meal from whatever's in the cupboard. Maybe, one of the family recipes is ham barbecue, maybe something like that. So, and the insights I'd like to get, it's how to best build the kingdom in what often feels like a fallen world in today's days and age. I'd hope to gain a valuable insight and get some internal resolve into the best way to accomplish powerful change for the betterment of us all.
Very good. Josh Tarsky, you're next.
So for me, it's my grandpa. I named my last child after him, William. He was a military service member. He reached the rank of colonel, and I think I always admired him to this day. We had a good relationship, and it would just be cool to catch up with him. I think he passed away when I was young. I think I was 12, somewhere in that range. And it'd be good to catch up and basically just say, hey, thanks. You showed me that there are causes and things worth doing, worth fighting for, and hopefully you'd be proud of the traditions that I've hopefully carried on and that he helped to set in my family. As far as dinners, I would treat him to a dinner of like chicken cutlets. It's my best dish. And I think he would be happy to get a dish that I think he'd be amazed that I can now cook. But as a father of three, that's kind of part of the gig, right? You learn those things and how to do like maintenance stuff around the house. So maybe he'd come over, we'd fix some stuff, talk about some of the things I'm doing. Maybe he can give me some insight into what's coming after this life. I don't know. And
I'm going to stop you there, Josh. Thank
yeah.
you. Ken, your turn.
Sure. If I were to invite someone over for dinner, it would be my friend Alex Friedman. I think it's weird as I'm getting older and the people that we meet and sort of can drift away from. I'm realizing now that you don't really lose friends. We just sort of end up in different places. So I would invite him over, and our family tradition, me and him, we would go to a place in Sudbury, Soul of India, and we'd get the lamb korma there. And we would just hang out and talk and see how things are together and just catch up. Yep.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Ken, I'm going to let you go first with closing statements. You have 90 seconds. I'm going to wave this when you get to your 15-second mark, and I'll show you this when it's time for you to stop. So I'm going to start the timer. Whoops, hold on one second. Go ahead.
Sure, perfect. This won't take that much time. I want to start by thanking you, Greg, for having me, and as well as thanking the Chamber for hosting this incredible event, and the other two candidates for being here and taking their time out of their day to be here and discuss. My closing statement is that I want people to get out to the polls this September and then again in November. Get a mail-in ballot. Tell everyone that you know that it's important to drive civic engagement. You know, and at the end of the day, vote for whoever you think is going to represent you best. If you think that's going to be me, I'd do an incredible job for you. But at the end of the day, if what these other two great men have shared with us resonates with you more, please just make sure that you cast a ballot this September and then again this November. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And you did do that in less time. Patrick Gatto, you were next.
Great. Thanks, Greg, and thanks for the Chamber for putting this together. In closing, I just want to say, I believe climate change is the defining issue, not of our generation, but of our civilization. We need to address it, much faster and much better. We also need to address the elephant in the room in money and politics. I'm a reproductive freedom warrior. I worked around the country for NARAL Pro-Choice America, and I will always be for a woman's choice to choose. I believe teachers are heroes, and I think it's time now to build with a bold vision for our future. I'm the Democrat in this race. I'm the legislative guy in this race. I'm the constituent services guy in this race. I'm the guy from here in this race. I'm the public school guy in this race. I'm the choice with the experience to best deliver for our families and businesses. I'm always going to try my hardest and do my best. And that's a known quality for me, right? I've worked around town with all the groups that you can think of. And I've been doing it my whole life here at home in DC with Catherine Clark for affordable housing, for equity, for democratic principle on which our nation was founded. I'm not switching to this very important work. It's in my DNA, and I've received training and education and diploma to be able to deliver on it. I've worn out many pairs of shoes standing beside a lot of you and those who know what it makes to make a difference. So I ask for your support on September 3rd, and to get involved, please visit electgatto.org. Thank you.
Great. Oh, thank you very much. And finally, Josh Tarsky, your turn.
Yeah, thank you all well, first, thanks to the Chamber for hosting this great and important event to get some of our views and help inform the electorate. And for all of us here too, I think we're all trying to do the same thing, make a positive change in government and for our local communities, which is wonderful. I mean, that's what we should be doing. When I think of, why choose me, it's been a life of public service. It really has, from my time in the military, being deployed several times, to even trying to found schools overseas in Afghanistan, to coming and learning and being a teacher in America, to becoming a school administrator and now an attorney. The paths that I've been on, they transform you, they teach you. They're difficult things to undertake. And I think if you vote for me, that experience is going to play. I've been in difficult situations where I've had to make change, and I was able to make change and able to also represent the people I was tasked with representing. And I think it's an important job, and one that some of my experiences have prepped me well for. So vote for me, and I would try to get a good sense of what you guys believe in, what you guys and gals believe in, and also make a difference in Needham, Dover, and Medfield precincts 1 and 2, as well as the rest of the state. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all very much. We'd love to see you all next Tuesday night at Needham Night. Happy to have you attend as our guest, so voters can get a chance to talk to you and hear more about you, and especially talk about business-related issues that I think are really important. The primary is September 3rd. Voters will have a chance to select one of you, and then we'd like to invite you back for the general election, the November election, where you'll be running against independent Bill Dermody. So we'll have another chance to talk more about this But really, I'm grateful to all of you for your time and to everybody who's watching now and everybody who's going to watch the recording later. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.